The sun dipped low behind the rolling Kansas fields, painting the quiet farmhouse in warm golden hues. Emma Collins, a soft-spoken young woman in her mid-twenties, lived a simple life with her 14-year-old brother, Jake. To anyone in town, Emma was just a quiet farm girl, hard-working, polite, and a little reserved. No one knew about her past, and she preferred it that way. Every morning started the same, feeding the horses, mending fences, and hauling hay. But beneath her calm exterior lay a mind trained for precision, discipline, and survival. 3 years ago, Emma had served as an elite Navy SEAL, carrying out covert operations across the globe. After a classified mission went wrong, she left the service, returning home to care for Jake after their parents passed away. But life in the small town wasn't always peaceful. A group of local bullies, led by the arrogant and wealthy Mason Briggs, had been harassing Jake at school for weeks. Mason, spoiled by his influential father, believed he owned the town. He and his crew mocked Jake's hand-me-down clothes, called him farm boy, and even vandalized the Collins property. Emma had warned Jake to ignore them, hoping they'd get bored and move on. But deep down, her instincts told her something worse was coming. Years of military training had sharpened her awareness, and she felt the tension brewing like a storm over the horizon. That storm arrived one Saturday evening when Emma and Jake were repairing a section of their fence. A convoy of trucks rumbled down the dusty road, kicking up clouds of dirt. Mason and his friends stepped out, grinning with mischief in their eyes. "Nice little farm you got here," Mason sneered, tossing a crushed soda can on the ground. "Be a shame if something happened to it." Jake clenched his fists, ready to snap back, but Emma gently placed a hand on his shoulder, a silent command. Her voice was calm but sharp, the kind that made even seasoned soldiers listen. "You boys should leave," she said softly. "Now." They laughed, mistaking her quiet tone for weakness. Big mistake. The hot summer air hung heavy, but the silence was even heavier. Emma stood beside Jake, her hand still resting on his shoulder, eyes locked on Mason and his crew. Years of Navy SEAL training had sharpened her instincts, she could read their body language like an open book. The swagger, the clenched jaws, the shifting stances, they weren't here to talk. "Didn't you hear me?" Mason smirked, stepping closer. "I said it'd be a shame if something happened to your barn." His friends chuckled behind him, but their laughter faltered when Emma didn't flinch. Jake's breathing quickened, he hated feeling powerless. But Emma's voice, steady and cold, sliced through the tension. "Jake," she said without looking at him, "go inside." Jake hesitated. "But..." "Now," she repeated, and he obeyed. With Jake safely out of the way, Emma turned her full attention to the bullies. Mason mistook her silence for fear and swaggered closer until he was only a foot away. "You think you can just tell us what to do?" he scoffed. "This isn't the Navy, farm girl. Out here, we make the rules." At that, something inside Emma shifted. Her eyes, calm moments ago, hardened like steel. Her training flooded back, situational awareness, threat assessment, controlled dominance. She subtly shifted her stance, centering her weight on the balls of her feet, ready to react. One of Mason's friends, a tall, wiry kid named Trent, picked up a fence post and twirled it like a bat. "Maybe we should teach Farm Boy a lesson next time we see him," he taunted. Emma's voice was low, but every syllable carried lethal precision. "You won't touch him." Mason laughed and reached out to shove her shoulder, but before he could blink, Emma's hand snapped up, catching his wrist midair. In one smooth motion, she twisted it behind his back, forcing him to his knees in the dirt. The other boys froze. None of them had even seen her move. "Here's the rule," Emma said, leaning close to Mason's ear, her tone calm but icy. "You leave my brother alone. You leave my farm alone. Or next time, you won't be walking away." She released him, and Mason stumbled back, red-faced and furious, rubbing his arm. But instead of retreating, his pride turned to anger. "This isn't over," he hissed, pointing a trembling finger at her. "You'll regret this." Emma didn't reply. She just watched them climb into their trucks and speed away, dust swirling behind them. Her gut told her this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The Kansas night was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your skin. Crickets had gone mute, and the faint breeze carried an unsettling stillness. Emma sat at the kitchen table, sipping black coffee, her instincts prickling like an electric current under her skin. Years of covert operations had taught her to trust that feeling, danger was near. Jake had gone to bed hours ago, but Emma stayed awake, listening. Then she heard it, the low rumble of truck engines approaching the property. Headlights flickered in the distance, crawling up the gravel road like predators stalking their prey. Her body moved before her mind had to think. She quietly retrieved the Glock 19 from the drawer, a remnant of her Navy SEAL days, but she tucked it behind her waistband, hoping she wouldn't need it. The truck stopped at the edge of the farm, engines rumbling. Doors slammed. Laughter echoed in the darkness. Mason and his crew. They weren't here to scare her this time. They were here to destroy. Emma crept to the porch, blending into the shadows, her breathing controlled and silent. She counted 6 of them. 2 by the trucks, for moving toward the barn with gasoline cans in hand. "Burn it down," Mason whispered harshly. "Teach her a lesson." Emma's jaw tightened. Burning the barn meant trapping the animals, and putting her home at risk. That wasn't happening. She stepped into the moonlight, her voice cold and steady. "You've got one chance to leave." The boys froze, startled by her sudden appearance. But Mason smirked, waving a crowbar. "Or what? You gonna milk us to death, farm girl?" Emma didn't answer. She moved. In a blur, she disarmed Trent, the same kid who'd mocked Jake, twisting the crowbar from his hands and using it to sweep his legs out from under him. Before Mason could react, she launched forward, grabbing his shirt and slamming him against the barn wall. 2 more came at her, swinging wildly, but Emma ducked under the first punch, striking the attacker's ribs with surgical precision. He collapsed, gasping for air. The second one charged, but she sidestepped, hooked his arm, and flipped him hard into the dirt. Within 30 seconds, 4 of them were down. Mason stumbled backward, his bravado gone. "What the hell are you?" he shouted, clutching his shoulder. Emma's icy stare cut through him. "I'm someone you shouldn't have messed with." But before she could finish it, the sound of a shotgun being cocked sliced through the night. Mason's father had arrived, and he wasn't alone. The real fight was only beginning. The click of the shotgun echoed through the night like thunder rolling across an open field. Emma froze, her muscles coiled and ready, while Mason scrambled behind the shadowy figure emerging from the trucks. "Step away from my boy," a deep voice commanded. It was Richard Briggs, Mason's father, a wealthy land developer who owned half the county and thought he owned the other half. He was a man used to getting what he wanted, and his reputation for ruthlessness was legendary. The moonlight glinted off the polished steel of the shotgun cradled in his hands. Emma released Mason, but her stance remained calm and centered. One glance told her everything she needed to know: Briggs wasn't bluffing. He was angry, armed, and convinced he was untouchable. "You've got some nerve putting your hands on my son," Briggs growled, stepping closer. "This is our town, girl. You don't tell us what to do here." Emma's gaze stayed locked on his weapon, her mind calculating distance, angles, and cover options. Years of SEAL training kicked in automatically, controlled breathing, sharp focus, and the constant search for leverage. "I didn't touch him," she said evenly, her voice steady as stone. "He and his friends trespassed, tried to burn my barn. You should be thanking me he's walking." Briggs laughed, low and cold. "You think anyone's gonna believe you over me? I built this town. I own the sheriff, the mayor, hell, even the bank. Out here, you're just a nobody farm girl. That was his mistake, underestimating her. Before Emma could reply, Jake's terrified voice cut through the darkness from the farmhouse porch. Emma. He stood there clutching a flashlight, his small frame trembling. Briggs turned his head toward Jake, and in that split second, Emma acted. She stepped sideways, fast and low, putting herself directly between Jake and the barrel of the shotgun. Go inside, Jake, she ordered sharply, never taking her eyes off Briggs. But Briggs didn't back down. Instead, he raised the shotgun higher, pointing it at her chest. Last warning, he said, his tone deadly. Emma's grip subtly tightened on the Glock hidden at her back. Her breathing slowed, heartbeat steady, every muscle ready to explode into motion if he pulled that trigger. Behind Briggs, Mason's crew had regrouped, picking themselves up from the dirt, bruised and humiliated but still dangerous. 6 against 1, 7 if Briggs counted himself. The odds were bad. But Emma had been in worse situations, and survived. She had one chance to turn this standoff around, and she knew exactly how to do it. The night air was electric, thick with tension. Briggs' finger hovered near the shotgun trigger, his men spread out behind him like wolves circling their prey. Jake stood frozen on the porch, clutching the flashlight like a lifeline, his terrified eyes locked on his sister. Emma's breathing slowed. Her mind sharpened, cataloging every detail, the angle of the trucks, the positions of Briggs' men, the distance to cover, the wind direction, even the loose gravel beneath her boots. This wasn't chaos to her. It was math. It was tactics. It was survival. Last chance, Briggs, Emma said calmly, her tone like steel cutting through silence. Take your boys and leave. Briggs smirked, raising the shotgun an inch higher. Or what? You think you can take all of us? Emma didn't answer. She didn't need to. In a single, fluid motion, she drew her Glock from behind her back, dropped to one knee, and aimed dead center, not at Briggs, but at the floodlight on the barn wall. One suppressed shot. Crack. The light shattered, plunging the entire yard into near darkness. Confusion erupted. Briggs' men yelled, stumbling as their vision adjusted. Emma used the chaos, rolling into the shadows like a ghost. Where is she? Trent shouted, panic cracking his voice. They couldn't see her, but Emma could see everything. She used the moonlight and her memory of the terrain, slipping silently behind Briggs' men, striking one down with a swift elbow to the neck. He crumpled without a sound. Another spun around, swinging a bat, but Emma caught his arm mid-swing, twisted it, and sent him sprawling face-first into the dirt. Every movement was precise, efficient, pure Navy SEAL discipline. Within 30 seconds, 3 men were down. The others hesitated, realizing they weren't facing a farm girl. They were facing something far deadlier. Briggs roared in anger, firing his shotgun blindly into the darkness. The blast lit up the night, but Emma had already moved, flanking him from the left. In one seamless motion, she kicked the shotgun from his hands, spun behind him, and locked him in a chokehold. Call it off, she hissed into his ear. Now. Briggs struggled, but Emma's grip didn't budge. Finally, he wheezed, stand down. Everybody stand down. One by one, Mason and his bruised, terrified friends backed away, dragging their fallen crew toward the trucks. Briggs stumbled after them, his pride shattered. Before leaving, Mason shot Emma a venomous glare. This isn't over, he muttered. Emma stepped forward, her eyes cold as steel. It is if you're smart. The trucks roared away, their taillights disappearing into the distance. Jake ran to Emma, hugging her tightly, his small frame shaking. I thought they were gonna hurt you. Emma knelt down, brushing the hair from his face. Not while I'm here, little brother. Not ever. For the first time in years, Jake saw the fire in his sister's eyes, the warrior she used to be. And in that quiet Kansas night, one thing became clear. No one would ever underestimate the quiet farm girl again.